Okay, welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to Super Searcher, Strategies for Your Online Searching. It's a webinar given by the Frickard Reference Library and the Frick Madison. My name is Ralph Baylor. I'm the Interlibrary Loan and Document Delivery Lead here at the library, and helping me is my colleague, Eugenie. Eugenie, can you introduce yourself so people can recognize the sound of your voice?
Of course, thanks, Ralph. My name is Eugenie Fortier. I'm a reference assistant at the Frickart Reference Library. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Eugenie. Eugenie is actually going to help us out by collecting your questions and present them back to me towards the end of the webinar so I can have someone read them to me. There is a Q&A feature that you have with the Zoom functionality. Use the Q&A rather than the chat to pose questions. That way we can collect those all and mark them as answered as we go along. Also note that this workshop is being recorded in addition to being live captioned. We will provide you the slide deck for today's webinar and the recording in about a week or so. This gives us time to make any edits for the session today. So let's get started by looking at the schedule. We're in the introduction now. We're going to go over just kind of goals that we have for today's session. We're also going to look at general search strategies. So I've chosen three main strategies that you can use before, during, and after your searching to help you get more efficient searches and more efficient results. Then we'll look at more specific searches with platforms. We'll look at searching with the web. For this session, we're only going to use Google since it's the most popular web browser. And then we'll look at searching with library catalogs using the Frickard Reference Library Catalog as our example. We'll cover searching with databases. And then finally, we'll answer some questions. And then I have a slide for resources that you can dig more into if you'd like. So hopefully by the end of today's webinar, you'll have met a couple of goals. I'd like you to be able to have adopted new strategies for improving your searching. And I also want you to walk away learning how to use advanced search features for effective searching within each of the platforms that I've specified. So let's get into talking about search strategies. Just to put the focus on the webinar, I'm going to turn off my camera at this point. Just give me 1 second. Great. And there are a couple of general search strategies, like I mentioned, that are really good for creating efficient search results. Part of this webinar was designed as a foundational course. So some of these you may have heard about before, some of these you may not have. But the one thing I do want to get across is that searching is a skill. It's a skill that you develop over time. And if you know how to do effective searching, you're going to get better results. And that in turn is going to make you a better researcher. Searching is the action that supports your research. That was kind of the mantra I had going on while designing this webinar. So let's take a look at the first general search strategy. And that's determining your needs. What I mean by that is you really need to know where you are in your research. If you're exploring an idea or finding background information, search engines, reference resources, and Wikipedia are great search platforms for you to use. What I mean by reference resources, I do mean the old physical books, like encyclopedias, like dictionaries. All of those are also online as well. Wikipedia is also a great tool. There may still be some people who are anti-Wikipedia. I can get something across right now. Wikipedia is a great first tool. Don't worry about it in terms of its reliability. You'll notice that all of the articles that are in there do have resources that they reference back at the article. So you can always follow up on those things. Again, it's a great tool for background information. Now, if you're searching for in-depth or historical information, library catalogs are really the most useful tool to use, and we'll talk more about those when we get to that section. On the other hand, if you're looking at the latest research findings, looking for the latest research findings rather, yes, you can use library catalogs to search for, recently published scholarly monographs, but you're also going to want to look at current periodicals, things that are just, recently published, and also databases. And I separate those two. A lot of people associate current periodicals and databases as the same type of search platform, but I separate them because a lot of what's in the current periodical, what's being published this month, for example, won't show up for databases for sometimes years to come. And that's because of a moving wall. And we'll talk about that when we get to that point in this section of the webinar. Now, if you're following up on citations, you have those, wonderful scholarly tomes, and they have a bibliography or footnotes that you really need to check out for your research. Then you're going to want to look at databases. Or even WorldCat. WorldCat's a great search tool for finding, where these books were published, or rather, what libraries hold these books. And people don't use it as often as they should. I'm really putting this out here because I think it's a great search platform to use. Now, of course, librarians can be consulted at any step of this process, and they should be. We are a human resource. We are happy to help. It's what we do. So if you're exploring background information, searching for historical information, looking for the latest findings, or following up on citations, the librarians really can be one of your greatest assets. So be sure to consult with us as well. Now, after you figured out where you are in your research process, you really need to figure out the kind of keywords you want to use when searching. And they're not necessarily the ones you automatically generate because they're related to your topic. You should do a little bit more work initially. That way you can have a range of keywords to mix and match. And there's a really great strategy for doing this. What I tend to do is I generate a list of these keywords by turning my topic into a question. In this example, I've used, does aging affect artist work? From that question, I've identified 4 concepts. Here you can see I highlighted aging and artist work. Now for each core concept or phrase from that core concept, you want to create different other words that are related to it. They can either be words that are narrower, broader, or related words. Thesauruses are great for this type of exercise. Go to thesaurus.com just for an easy and free tool that can help you generate other keywords. So you can see here for aging, I have mature, grow old or growing old, decline. For artist work, I put artist, artworks, work in general, working habits, painters. And now I can mix and match these in my search and see what results come up. And they will be different depending on the searches, depending on the order of the keywords that I put in there. Here's another example. What was the impact of World's Fairs on artists? So the core concepts here are impact, World's Fairs, and artist. For impact, I chose several related keywords. In this case, affect, results, inspire. For World's Fairs, I've chosen World Expos. It's a related term. Traveling exhibitions, kind of another related term. And state fairs, which is a narrower term, because there may be some results that I want focused primarily on the smaller local fairs. For artists, I can use the narrower terms painters or sculptors. I can use the tangential term writers, just to see what other creative types we're doing and how that's impacted, or how the World Fair has impacted them. I can use a broader term like creators, or even a related term, not necessarily searching on artists, but for artistic styles. Now, once you have your keywords that you generated using this strategy, you can then mix and match them to see what comes up, as I said before. You may want to say, do World Expos affect sculptors? and compare that with the results you get from, state fairs and artistic styles. You will generate different list of results, but they can all be useful for your research. And while you are putting in your keywords into your search boxes, you want to keep in mind that you have to constantly be evaluating your results. So for this example, in the picture here, you can see that I've used NIARC Discovery. This is a search platform created by the New York Art Resources Consortium that searches the libraries of within the consortium along with their databases. So you can see that I use the keywords here, world's fairs and artists, and I generated 22,000 results. This is far too many to be of any use for me. But I can, using these facets here, limit them. So if I just wanted to look at books, for example, I can just click on this link and I'll get only 13 results. And we'll talk more about using facets efficiently when we discuss the databases section. But for this general example, 22,000 is too broad. There are too many results to search for. When you input keywords, you can also have the opposite issue. You can have results that are too narrow. So using the Frick Art Reference Library's library catalog, Fresco, I put the keywords world's fairs, artist, and Paris. And I only got 2 results from that. Now, it's a little bit more difficult to determine whether my results were too narrow or whether this is all that I need. You really have to consider where you are in the research process. If I'm just finding background information, maybe I only need to look at this 19th century art, a critical history book. It's a survey, so this may be useful initially. But if I'm looking for in-depth historical information, then yeah, this is too narrow. I may want to remove one of my keywords. In this case, I'll probably remove Paris, just because this is a little bit too restrictive. Now, in addition to seeing if your results are too broad or too narrow, i.e. you have too many results or too little, you also want to see if your results match your expectations. So for example, if I was at the Frick Art Reference Library catalog and I was searching for photography, I may be surprised that I don't have a lot of entries. Maybe my search terms are wrong. But the truth is they're not. It's just the fact is that the library doesn't really collect on photography. This is not one of our subject areas. So you're searching the wrong platform. So when your results don't match your expectations, think about some of the other factors that could be going into it. It's not necessarily your keywords. Maybe it's the platform that you're using. Maybe you're at a different point in the research process than you initially thought, and you're searching Google when you really should be searching WorldCat. So it's kind of an art to kind of figure out whether things are the result list that you need or not. But that's the skill portion. That's what you develop, and that's what you're doing here with this webinar. You can also consider whether the published dates that you see in your results list make sense. If you're only seeing newer material or older material, there may be something wrong with your keywords or with your filters that needs adjusting. So keep that in mind as well. So with those general search strategies, looked at, we're going to start doing a deeper dive into searching with the web, specifically Google. Let's look at the pros and cons of using Google as a search platform. One of the best things about Google is that it's great for daily tasks. I can figure out when the Frick Art Reference Library is open. I just type it in, Frick Art Reference Library, when is it open? NYPL, when does it open? I'll probably get the answer right up top. If I need to know when H&H Bagels is open, I can do that too, really easy. You can also get broad results. So if you're not too sure what you're looking for, if you just want to see what's out there in a survey like fashion, you're going to get a lot of materials, and you'll be able to sift through that on your own. So it's really great for finding that background information. It's also free. Now, I use quotation marks here because it's really ostensibly free. There is a cost of doing any type of searching with Google. Google is, in my personal opinion, an ad agency and data collecting agency disguised as a search tool. There's nothing wrong with that inherently if you know what you're getting yourself into, but there are issues with privacy that you should be aware of. So if privacy is a matter for you, if you're working with some very personal information, if you're working with things you just don't want out there, or if you don't want Google influencing your results, because they will, the more you Google specific topics, the more you're going to see related results for that with future searches. You're also going to get advertisements related to that. We've all experienced that kind of weird ghost in the machine effect, where you just happen to be talking about something and boom, the ad's there in your Facebook account. So, there are other options out there. You could use DuckDuckGo, you could use Firefox, Safari. They will get you some slightly different results, and they have different privacy functions that you can play with. The con is kind of the flip side of broad results is that sometimes you can get too much information. You'll see when we do some live demos right now that you can get millions of results. That doesn't mean that the stuff that's on page 10 is not relevant to you, but are you actually going to be sifting through 10, 20, 40, 100 pages of information to see whether something is relevant to your research? Probably not. So in turn, the results you get from Google actually tend to be shallow too, which is why it tends to be good for finding that background information. You can correct that slightly when you use some of these advanced search techniques that we're going to review shortly. Now, finally, Google does have bias built into it. There is no neutral set of search results. There are proprietary search algorithms that populate the results list for you. These are created by humans, and they have all sorts of human flaws with them as well. And it pops up in the news from time to time. We won't go over them now, but if you're really interested in the resource page, I've included a link to a book, Algorithms of Oppression, which is a fantastic read, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in Google searching and bias as well. So with that in mind, let's talk about Google and do some live demoing. So I'm currently in my work demo. I'm going to switch this out just to my personal version of Chrome. This way I don't have results that are influenced by my work, which a lot of them are related to the topics that we're going to talk about today, and I don't really want that happening. So one of the basic search functions or advanced search functions you can use is phrase searching. Let's stick to the World's Fair theme and talk about, phrase searching, which is basically just using keywords within quotes. When you do this, you're telling Google that you only want to return results that specifically have the words worlds and fair next to each other within the results. And you get about 8.4 million results. The top ones are Wikipedia. You get a couple of questions as well, an encyclopedia entry, a general kind of fluff piece by Time. So, you're getting accurate results. Again, there's that broad information. Let's take this a step further. Let's say you're really specifically interested about the Women's Building, which was built in the Columbian Expo World's Fair. So we can do another phrase search for Women's Building. and World's Fair. You can combine the two. And now we're only going to give results that have those two phrases within them. They don't have to be next to each other, notice, because we don't have the quotes there, but they do have to say World's Fair and Women's Buildings. And our 8.4 million results has dropped drastically to 8,500. Still too much to search for, but already you've seen an exponential decrease in what you have to sort through. There's actually, Sophia Hayden was the architect of the Women's Building. So let's include her in our searches. And so we'll do another phrase search. Wikipedia entry again, a lot of articles related to the Women's Building because we have World's Fair. We can exclude terms as well. So let's stick with Sophia Hayden right now. And let's say we don't want any results that have the word Women's Building in them. In that case, we can put the minus sign. Notice that there's a space here. Minus sign. Oops, sorry. Women's Building. And we'll filter out any results or any entries within the Google search that have the term Women's Building in here. And you can see it works right here. It has Sophia Hayden, Britannica article. We have the word woman, but we don't have building next to it. So that's why it's there. And we have this term here, woman's building, because that's another term. So we can actually use the exclusion symbol to remove that as well. And it's gone. So combine your phrase searching with the subtract exclusion symbol to really hone in on your web searching. Another cool feature that you can do is search within a range of numbers. So let's go back to World's Fair. Actually, let's just use World's Fair. And then let's say I'm only interested in entries between 1893 and 1913, before World War I. If that's the case, then I will put in the dates, 1893, followed by two ellipses and a space, and 1913. And so what I'm asking Google to do is to search through the web and return me any results that have the phrase World's Fairs that also feature any dates between 1893 and 1913. And here we have the 1913 Expo held in Ghent, which ironically the theme was peace, industry, and the arts. Wikipedia again. Continuing on with advanced searching, we can search within a specific site so that we only get entries within that site that we're looking at that we want Google to return results for. To do that, you just type in site, colon, and then the URL for the website you want. Let's just use Wikipedia right now, followed by a space, and then the keyword that you're looking for. We'll just type in Sophia Hayden and see what comes up. So next, we have all of the entries related for Sophia Hayden here in Spanish, French, associated entries, And this can be a really useful tool to narrow down the type of research you're looking at, especially if you know the website that you want to search through. So Wikipedia is great and all, but we can also search through the Bureau International d'Exposition, which is the organizing body that, puts on the World's Fairs. To do that, let me just keep this site : and then type in the URL for that, which is BIE-Paris, PARIS.org. And we're going to limit that to site and English articles. And then we will put in the phrase, actually, let's use the phrase Guernica. So Guernica made its debut in the 1937 Paris Exposition. And you can see we only have 7 results, knowing that there are 7 results within the Bibliothèque, or the Bureau International d'Exposition website that feature the term Guernica. It's a neat tool. Now, I've given you, kind of these advanced search functions that you input here. I've also really haven't told you the whole truth yet. If you click on settings, you can see here advanced search. And you can already see that I'm asking Google to find pages with the term Guernica within the site or domain for the Bureau International. So you're probably asking me at this point, why didn't you start with this? This is a great tool. If you walk away with this from this session with only looking at advanced search, that's wonderful. That makes me happy. But it's not going to teach you how to search better. It's just going to provide it for you. Think of searching as learning a new language. You really, when you do it the harder way, which is learning the shortcuts, typing in, you really learn the structure of searching. The same way when you learn a new language, you learn the sentence structure of the language you're learning, but also by reflection, the language that you natively speak. It's really kind of the same technique happening here. This will do it for you the same way Google Translate will translate your documents, but you're not going to learn as much about structuring searches by just using advanced search functions here. Let's go back. And really, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty quick. I can go to frick.org and just search for articles related to the Frick Art Reference Library within that site. Get back 2,400 results. And it's much easier than having to go to settings each time, searching through the box. So I really encourage you to practice this type of searching when you are searching through Google or any of your other preferred search engines. So let's get back to the slide. So I've included in this slide kind of what we went over. We didn't talk about this, and I apologize, but we didn't talk about entitled. You can search for in Google using the term entitled : with your search term. And it will only search for entries that have that specific title within the article. You can also do that with a URL by typing in URL : and the keyword, or in the body of an article by typing in body : and Picasso, or the keyword in this case. So now that we've learned a little bit more about searching within a web search engine, let's talk about searching within library catalogs. Bias here, but I love library catalogs. It's kind of my thing. This is my favorite search plot to use. And we can see that by looking at the pros, there's a lot to like about library catalogs. One, they're focused on specialized collections. So if you're just studying, art history from the Renaissance period, we have everything that you need because that's what we do. We focus on that particular topic. So it provides you with focused results as well. So you're a law librarian, you're going to go to a law library. If you have access to NYPL, you're going to go there because they have just about everything. But they have specialized collections within their broader collection. Performing Arts Library, the Schomburg Center, so keep that in mind, that library catalogs will provide you access to records of specialized collections, providing you with better results, focused results. And the records that you see are typically going to be pretty great records. That's because there's a human at the end, a cataloger, who is looking at the material and making decisions on what's relevant to put in that record, as opposed to a search algorithm. I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other. They both have their uses, but a cataloger can provide you with thorough, rich records that you can make decisions whether this material is right for you just by looking at. And we'll see that an example of that shortly. Library catalogs also come with professional assistance. Remember, librarians can help you at any time, and a librarian who works at the library, whose library catalog you're searching through, will know more about that catalog than anybody else. So be sure to use them. There are some cons, of course. Access can be difficult, especially right now with COVID-19. A lot of libraries are closed. The Frick Art Reference Library is doing its best to provide access in numerous ways, and I know a lot of other libraries are, but it still remains difficult to access every library that you need. And it could also be a geographical thing. If you are looking for physical material at the Getty, but you live in New York, that's going to be harder to do. And also, they don't really have the most intuitive searching. If you're just searching in Google and you're used to typing in natural language sentences and getting results, that's not what you're going to get with library catalogs. You really need to think about the search terms you're using, and also think about the indexes you're using, the things that you're asking the library catalog to search through. And I'll show you an example of that right now as well. So let's get into a live demo of this. And so the first thing I want to point out is this index feature. There are two drop-down menus with ours, but most library catalogs have at least one, if not two. This one changes whether you want to use a keyword, say those keywords that we generated for the search strategy section, or you can use a title search, author search, subject search, and various others. If you know the ISBN number of the book you're looking for, you can put it there. And if we have it, it'll return that record. The second drop-down box is for the different types of scopes that we have, or in this case, the libraries that you can search for within this catalog. Because the Frick Art Reference Library is part of the New York Art Resources Consortium, along with the Brooklyn Museum Library and the Museum of Modern Art Library, you can actually search through all three libraries simultaneously, all three libraries' e-resources, or limit them to specific libraries like the Brooklyn Museum, or specific collections within a library, like the Wilbur Library or photo archive materials, or things within the Museum of Modern Art's Latin American collection. So don't ignore these little drop-down boxes. They're really useful for honing in on that specific research that you're looking for. Let's also look at the advanced search features. These are a little bit different than what you would find in Google. Like I said, they can be a little bit more unintuitive, but very useful nonetheless. One of the best things I find about our advanced search features is the ability to limit things by material type. So if you're just looking for auction catalogs, you can do that, or serials here. And let me just show you an example of why that's important. Let's say you have some citations you're following up on. And one of them is from some early 20th century publication called The Studio. So you do a keyword search for the studio and you get 5,700 results. You don't see the studio here. You see Matisse in the studio, You don't even see it in the top page of 50 results out of the 5,700 that we have. That's because the studio is a pretty generic title. So let's do better. We can go to modify search. Under the material type, since we know we're looking for a periodical or a serial, we can just click on that and hit search. Success. The first result, top hit, is the studio. Let's look at that record. So again, the studio is a rather generic title. One other thing I may check while I'm doing my research, following up on this citation, is whether this is the studio whose publisher was in London, called the National Magazine Company. Well, because we have a rich record here that tells you the publisher, the publication history, I can follow up with that because there may be another publication called The Studio running out of Amsterdam. Well, if that's what shows up here, then that's not what I want because that's not what the citation says. In addition to kind of the rich record that I was talking about, if you look down here, you can see that we have special issues with numbering. So we know that number 229 repeated numbering and 230 is omitted. So if in the citation it is 229, I know that I may need to request both issues of 229. Or if a citation that I'm following says issue number 230, well, I know that I need 229. And you can see some other special issues regarding the numbering. You can see where we index this periodical. And then also into the notes, you can see kind of the history of the publication. So from 27 to 31, it was issued an American edition, also known as Creative Art. From 1897 to 1921, the American edition of the studio was issued in New York entitled the International Studio. For 1 year, this was also called Atelier, as you can see here. So occasionally, I've run across citations where it tells me that there's this article from the studio from 1931. If you did a search for any publication called the Studio in 1931, you're not going to find what you're looking for because at that point it was called Atelier. Well, this library catalog record is going to tell you that. And that's something that, we really specialize in. So the other thing I want to show you about library catalog, I think they're pretty fantastic, is subject searching. So let's fall back on kind of that Picasso, Guernica subject, and let's see what else this library has about Picasso. So you've noticed I've changed my index to subject, and I'm just going to limit it to Picasso. Great. So I have 281 subjects, all about some person or something named Picasso. In this case, this is about Jacqueline Picasso. This is about Jacqueline Picasso's art collections. This is about exhibitions of Jacqueline Picasso's art collections. Let's just look at Pablo Picasso here. And let's look for Guernica. It may not be on the first page, especially with prolific artists with prolific artworks like Picasso. But if you look here, we have Guernica, Guernica anniversaries, congresses devoted specifically to Guernica, criticism and interpretation of Guernica. Let's do this. You can see record number 119, and you can see that there are 9 entries. That means 9 books that our catalogers have decided, exhibitions are exhibitions on Guernica or feature Guernica. And I've really narrowed down my search results to give me everything about Picasso and Guernica, to just give me everything about the exhibitions of Guernica that the library has. Now we can do this again, but instead let's talk about catalog resonance, because you may want to search for all the works done by a particular artist. And the Frick Art Reference Library excels at tabbing and collecting catalog resumes. So this is how you would do that. If you just do a search for the artist name and come down, I went too far this time, to catalog resumes. If we look over here, we see we have 22 catalog resumes. You may be only familiar with one or two, probably the Christian Zervos catalog resume, which is one of the best ones out there, but there's also a catalog resume specifically dedicated to his lithographic works, his illustrated books. These may be useful in your research, and you can do this for any author or any artist or subject that we may have. So be sure to take advantage of the subject index. It's not one that I see a lot of people doing when conducting searches. And finally, for those of you who work with provenance research, sales catalogs, collections, or auction catalogs, I just want to point out the data sale index. So we all know auction catalogs host the same sale year after year. There are hundreds of auction catalogs titled Impressionist and Modern Art, or Evening Sale, things like that. So a better way to do it is by searching by the date of sale. And we have an index for that. And a lot of other libraries that specialize in this type of collection do as well. You can search, the formatting is different and they'll let you know in the library index. But for us, for example, we ask you to put in the 4-digit year, the 2-digit month, and a 2-digit day. And what you're going to return are all the sales that happened in February 16, 2005. All the sales that we hold specifically. If you didn't know the exact date and you just wanted to see all the sales that the Frick Art Reference Library has for February 2005, just remove 16. You can see that we have 24 days of sale with a total of 69 sales happening within those 24 days. And if you wanted to, you can click on a specific day to just see that day's sales. So we did February 9th, 2005. So be sure to check out the indexes while you're conducting your search and looking for your research, because the indexes are really helpful for narrowing down and getting you a list of results that are most useful to you. So I'm going to talk briefly about databases, and I'll do one live demo to save some time for questions. Let's look at some pros and cons, though. We'll cover everything here. Databases can provide you with the newest research, usually. That's because databases often have deals with publishers that only allow them to show them, let's say, the last 2 years or up to the most recent 2 years of issues that were published. So you may get everything from 2018 and earlier within a database, but you won't know what's been published within the last 2 years due to copyright restrictions and the nature of the licenses that those databases have with the publishers of the serials. So that's why you also want to consult the physical material sometimes, or even go onto the publisher's website to see what's been published recently. Now, many databases have great filters, so you can really hone down a list of large results to a list of small ones that you can actually use, usually. I say usually because all the newer ones really do, but there's some really wonderful older ones that have good filters but are clunky to use because the terms that they've associated with them are confusing, or they're buried behind menus. Sometimes they don't actually have good filters at all, but because they collect really specialized information, that's really the go-to for that particular research area. And I'm thinking, again, to auction catalogs and Scipio, for example. They have great indexes, but the filters are difficult to use and they're buried under a couple of menus and they don't always make a lot of sense. But still, we use it all the time, at least in our field. Now, they're great for citations. I mean, for following up on citations that you find while doing your research, but also for finding citations for your research. So not only are you looking at a monograph, following up on citations you see in the footnotes or in the bibliography, but you may be actually conduct searches in databases that don't contain digitized material or PDFs just because you want to see what's been published. Oftentimes, those types of citation databases have looser restrictions to their access because they don't have to worry about providing you with the digitized version. That being said, there's a lot of great databases that provide digitized material, especially stuff that's in the public domain. And I'm thinking specifically here, archive.org in this instance, or the Getty Research Portal. Finally, databases offer automatic searching. This is a really useful tool for when you want to, especially if you don't always have access to the specific database every day. So let's say you are using ProQuest dissertations, full text, and you can only access it when you're at NYPL or at your academic institution. You can't access it from home. Well, you can set up, when you are at NYPL, an automatic search to provide you a list of results based upon criteria that you've set in advance. And once anything that's published that fits your results, you'll receive an email letting you know, hey, it's time to go back to see it. So that way you're not wondering like, oh, well, has anything new been published in the last 3 months? You won't have to worry about that. You'll know because you've set up this automatic alert for you. And that kind of gets into the cons. Access is very difficult sometimes. COVID-19, a lot of databases and a lot of libraries have been able to negotiate looser and more open access to these databases, but not everyone. Cost, if you don't have access to a specific database through a library or through your academic affiliation, costs can be prohibitive. They're very expensive even for libraries to purchase as well. And finally, not everything is going to be digitized and accessible via any database. There's especially a huge gap between, let's say, the years 1930 and 1980, where there's just not PDFs of that stuff created yet, in which case you'll be using those citations and citation databases as well. So I'm going to talk about JSTOR because they are loosening up their restrictions. And let me just open this up. So right now with JSTOR, because of COVID-19, they've increased the number of articles you can read online for free from 6 articles a month to 100. So if you haven't signed up for a JSTOR account and you don't have access to it from home, please, sign up, log in, and create it. In addition to that, if you have a New York Public Library card, you can access JSTOR from home using that library card. Just to make it as equitable as possible, I'm going to go ahead and do it without any of my institutional affiliation. So, yep, I'm using my home account, and I'm going to go ahead and just log in. Okay. Now, one of the things I want to discuss here is the browse feature. So this is another feature that I often don't see people using, which they really should, especially if you just want to get a sense of what has been published by a specific journal. If you go to browse by title, you then have a list of titles that you can comb through. Let's go to and there's a journal I particularly like called After All. It's the Journal of Art, Context, and Inquiry, focused specifically on contemporary art. I click on that, I can see all the issues that JSTOR has. If I click on journal info, I get a description of the journal, but I also see what's covered in this moving wall. So coverage provided by JSTOR is from 1998 to 2015. And if I look at the moving wall, and this varies from publication to publication, so you may want to check this out. It gives you a brief definition of the moving wall and tells you basically that, this lists the most recent issue you can access with JSTOR. So anything published since after 2015 will not be available for you on JSTOR. You can't even search for it in citations on JSTOR. You'd have to go to another database for that. But anything from 2015 or prior is here for you. We'll click on that. We get relevant articles that we need. We can have a preview, or in this case, because I have 100 articles here, I could just click here and read online. So be sure to use this tool and to use JSTOR when you get a chance, because I don't know how long they're going to keep this going. So since we've talked about Google previously, I'm going to go ahead and bypass the Google Scholar in-depth discussion, but I do want to highlight where you can set alerts. So you can see I have Google Scholar here. And if I hit the alerts button, I can create an alert, submit my query, including those advanced features that we've talked about. And that way I can create an alert and it will update me whenever the Frick publishes anything that has the word Veronese in it. You can do this with Google Scholar, but you can also, like I mentioned, do this with those subscription databases when you have access to them. I'm thinking ProQuest databases, EBSCOhost databases as well. So with that in mind, that wraps up the discussion portion of the webinar, and I'm just going to open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Ralph. That was really informative. And your analogy about searching and languages and learning languages was really, really on point.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions that came in. There are a few that I tried to answer, but I would love your opinion on them as well. So the first one was about asking about a handout with shortcuts. And I did mention that the slides will be sent out with the shortcuts for exclusion, phrase searching, and date ranges. Is there anything else that we can point our researchers to in terms of tools or shortcuts?
So in the resources page here, I have, and I didn't link the actual URL to it, which I will, oh, maybe I did. Sorry, guys. Let me see what happened.
Is this the Guardian article?
It's actually this one right here, Advanced Search Techniques with Google.
Oh,
so this will take you to, this link here will take you to, yeah, I can't really, let me do it from here, guys. There we go.
I just popped it in the chat.
Thank you. I'll be sure to link this when we send out the slide deck, so that way you have access to it too. But this link will take you to the Google search page on how to do advanced searching on your computer, on your Android, on iPhone, iPad. And it'll also give you more information too about privacy and things. So be sure to take a look at that.
Great, thank you. There was
And I also,
oh,
oh, go
sorry.
ahead. No, it's your fine.
There was also a question about whether library catalogs are only available in-house or online as well.
Our library catalog is available online. Most library catalogs are, there are a few specialized library catalogs that may not be, but I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. But I mean, most museum library catalogs you can access from home.
Great. Just going through the questions chronologically, how does one find other consortia for art reference libraries, assuming there are others?
There are other consortia for art reference libraries. That's really a good question. Go to oclc.org and you will see that there are consortia for other art reference libraries besides NIARC. Now, that being said, a lot of them don't have the same shared catalog. For example, we're part of another consortia with the Getty, the several other art libraries as well. But we don't have the same catalog. But what we do is we loan books to each other for free. So if you need access to an interlibrary loan book from the Getty, you can and you have access to the Frick collection and the Frick Art Reference Library. You can actually get that Getty book by fulfilling an interlibrary loan request. And you can find that kind of information from our library catalog. So for example, interlibrary loan, document delivery, these links will take you to more information so that way if you do need a book from another library and you have access to the Frick Art Reference Library, which you do, we're open to the public by appointment at this point, but you still have access to us. You have access to a whole range of collections as well.
That leads really well into the next few questions that I'm just going to lump together if you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, let's shoot.
Does one have to be a member of the Frick in order to do research online? And is the Frick Art Reference Library available for free?
We are open and available for free. We are open by appointment. You do not have to have a membership with the museum to access the library, but you do need to register for a library card, which you can do here. And you will also need to make an appointment, which I believe you can do from this library visit page right here. And this is primarily just to ensure social distancing at this point, because of COVID still a factor, especially in New York City. But we are open and we're happily taking appointments.
And just to clarify, this is at the Breuer Building on Madison and 75th.
Yep, this is the Frick Madison, our new temporary location. Come check it out. It's fantastic.
It really is, yes. All right. So in terms of art reference libraries, and I believe that this person is asking about the resources that are available through the catalog online, whether you have to be a member of the libraries to access those resources.
You do not. No, you can search for those resources right now. Let me just go back. Give me 1 second. If you just type in frick.org/fresco, you'll be taken to the Frick Art Reference Library catalog, and you can search for all our physical holdings through here. We do have electronic resources and ebooks. Some of the electronic resources you do have to be on site to access, as I remember that's one of the cons for databases, but we do try to keep an active list of free e-resources. If you just go to this e-resources tab, click that, and then click free resources here. And this may take a second to load up on my page. It usually does, but for most other people, they don't have a problem with it. You'll get a list of free electronic resources available to you.
And
I hope that
also,
helps answer the question.
I believe so. But just to cover my bases, I'll also let everyone know that we are free and open to the public. You do not have to be an art history scholar to visit the library. We just ask that you fill out the visitation form just so that we can ensure social distancing during this time.
Yep. Oh, and you know what? One thing just popped into my head right now too. Speaking of, having better searches, the library does have a link for new acquisitions. So if you want to see the latest things that have been acquired by the library, not necessarily the latest things that have been published, but just the latest collections from the library, you can check it out here. And you can see newly cataloged titles for the Frick, January and February. So yes, we do have things from 2020, but we also have things from 1985 that we just got.
Those are always fun to look through.
Yeah. Again, that's right here at the new acquisitions page.
Zooming back out, I guess, to a wider perspective, can you go over WorldCat again and why you find it so useful, and also oclc.org?
Of course. So let's go to WorldCat. Let me just accept all these yummy cookies. So the reason why I find it useful is that WorldCat is the catalog created by OCLC, which in itself is a consortium of sorts. Libraries from across the world submit their records, their catalog records, to WorldCat for searching and discoverability. So when you're searching WorldCat, you're searching thousands of libraries for material. And we'll just go ahead and do the World's Fairs. And so if you look here, we have these facets that I discussed. You can limit your results by books, by chapters, articles, even music. And if we want a record, let's say we want this Eric Matty book, and it knows your location, which it does for me. It tells you the closest libraries that hold this item according to WorldCat, which is usually correct. It's not always, but 90% of the time, I'd say it's accurate. And so that's why it's a really great tool. If we go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which will soon be open to the public as well, we are now taken to their specific record for this book. So I highly recommend using WorldCat for not only just that broad general searching, but also, when you want to find who has the book. It's great for interlibrary lending. So if you know that, the Met has it, but you don't have access to the Met, you have access to the Frick, which, you can also ask for it and know that, it'll come.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Just to verify, this recording will be archived, is that correct?
We will make this recording available, and we will send you the recording along with the slide deck once the materials are ready. It'll be about a week or so.
And I think it will also be on the frick.org website, is that correct?
True, yes.
Okay, I will drop that link into the chat then, just so everyone can reference that. Has the library digitized most of our books to be read online, or will you be doing so, or are you prevented by copyright?
That's a really good question, and there's a lot of answers that I can provide you. We do have collections of digitized materials in several different places. I can point you to digitalcollections.frick.org. And if you hit enter, you have access to 3 distinct collections. One is the Photo Archive collection, so our collection of photographic reproductions of artworks. And we've managed with a generous grant, to digitize all of our classified holdings and make them available here. So within this particular collection or division, as we call it, there are 326,000 items. There are also a lot more photo archive holdings that are unclassified, or we just don't have as much bibliographic information for. Some that are here with documentation or without documentation, but the vast majority of the ones without documentation have not been digitized yet. You can also access our books here, the ones that have been digitized. The majority of these have been digitized because they are now in the public domain. And then you also have access to some archival collections as well. And you have these wonderful database filters for these too. Notice that these change depending on which specific division you're searching in. And with these, you can download the images in various sizes. Now, I want to point out archive.org as well, because this is another place that we put our collections of digitized books. So if I go to archive.org and then search under the little book symbol here, I can look by collection, which I'm just going to do a search under this bar right here, search this collection. I can see materials published by the Frick Art Reference Library, or digitized and made available. And we have a lot of our Vienna succession catalogs here. These are wonderful tools. We have our members magazines here as well. You can notice here that we have over 6,500 items within this particular collection. So there's a lot to look for. And you can read our magazines here.
What I really like about these also on the Internet Archive is that you can do phrase searching within the text of a publication.
Yeah, that's really nice. So it gives you a way to hone down on specific words or phrases that you're looking for within a publication. So you notice that we have 4 results. It's a cool feature. And this particular feature is not available on the digitalcollections.frick.org. So I really push people onto the Internet Archive for the digitized books that we have.
It's definitely a great resource to have. It looks like we don't have any further questions. A lot of gratitude being explained to you, Ralph.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
So,
well, if that's it, then you can always reach out to me. I will include my email and the library's email in the slide deck, so that way you have it when we send it out. But so that way you know right now, you can always reach me if you have further questions at Baylor@frick.org. That's my last name, @frick.org. I'll just show the first slide again. Nope. BAYLOR@FRICK.org. Thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon and a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.